Hey folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
It's the Tornado Tony Pennicott.
And Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball unveiled.
All right. And it's kind of funny. I'm going to start off with a little bit of reference to my last week's interview with Francois Both. I don't know if you guys got to listen to it at all, but it was about a half an hour or so. He seemed like he was ready to go. His dog wanted to go. I think he was going to go for a run. He told me he was going for a run. But we got into a lot of subjects. We talked about the Tyson fight. He wants a rematch, for sure. But I also asked him about this book called The Power of One. And I don't think he read the book, but he definitely saw the movie that was made out of it. It wasn't really like a well-heralded movie, but I believe Morgan Freeman was in it. It was based in South Africa, so that was what the connection was. But the principle of the movie was a little guy beats the big guy that had picked on him when he was a kid. As an adult, he runs into him and he ends up beating him up. So that was what the book was all about, too. And the thing that kept being repeated over and over in the book by his coach was little can beat big, first with the head, then with the heart. That was the motto that kept being repeated, and it was such a good little saying. And that's exactly kind of what happened today with Wall Street, and well, not today, but over the last few days. And it's the little guy banding together to teach this big group of hedge funds a big lesson. And it's, done without elections, done without politicians. They basically have forced regulation on the market. And I, for the first time in a long time, I woke up wanting to turn on CNBC. Because I first got into the subject last night, and I don't really know the first thing about stocks. I never really wanted to get in on any 401ks or, get involved, because I just always thought it was too risky. But anyway, I've become an expert on this one subject in the last 24 hours because I've read everything available. And it's basically started with this little Reddit group, and they came in and they said, all right, we're looking at all these hedge funds that are shorting this stock. And Gamestop, of all names for companies, I mean, what a perfect name to start a movement against hedge funds that are playing games with the system. Gamestop was the stock they chose to inflate in value by buying it up, buying as much of it up as they could. And one of the guys actually referenced Braveheart, Hold the Line, at one point in one of his messages. And there's millions of people in this one group that started it. So what ended up happening was these hedge funds lost billions of dollars. And then, lo and behold, the companies that advertise themselves as the people that were going to give you access to the system and help you make money shut down your opportunity to make money and sell or buy that stock anymore. They just shut it down. And I heard one person use the excuse that was because of the volume levels were so high that they couldn't handle it. That's it'd be the excuse.
Yeah, right. Now they would have a right. They would have a right to shut it down if you're playing with margin. But if you're playing with money, it sounds criminal what they did.
Yeah.
Because margin is a whole different game.
And when I woke up and started watching CNBC, the first person they attributed to the news that Robinhood was shutting people out, Dave Portnoy, the guy that runs Barstool Sports. So it comes back to sports.
Yeah.
Dave Portnoy has suddenly become the expert on almost everything. And it was amazing to me. I'm thinking, I've heard that name before. Isn't that the Barstool Sports guy? And they're calling him on Tucker Carlson tonight. He did a whole interview, wonderful interview. And he called for the people from Robinhood to go to jail. And meanwhile, on CNN, you got Belfort there. I wanted to say Vitor. Jordan Belfort, who did the stock scam that the Wolf of Wall Street is based on. And he says the people that put this together, the Reddit group people, should be arrested.
What a piece of garbage. You know, what a piece of trash. Jeez. Yeah, they bought a stock.
Yeah.
Come on.
So he made the point. The one good point he made was they should have picked a better company.
It's all luck. It really is.
But I think the best justice of all would be, okay, you're going to shut you down from buying the stock. All right. Then inflate the company's value anyway. And tie it to a charity. You know what? Toys for Tots. Buy a game, give it to Toys for Tots. and flood the company with money. You know, you might not get the value you want out of your stock if you've invested in it and you got stuck with it. But you'll still fuck the hedge companies if that was your ultimate goal. But right now, I think at its height, it was like a $22 billion valuation. It would be hard to flood it with that much money. With just an individual, like, you know, go to your store and buy effort. But at the same time, I did read that this whole thing did start on a legitimate push for them to kind of revolutionize. They hired a new CEO from Chewy.com, which is a really successful company. I'm seeing commercials for them all the time. And so it did start generating a better outcome on its own before these hedge companies says, oh, no, it's going to go down. But they've been manipulating the system for so long. I mean, you look back at the systems of like derivative investments and the housing crisis. I mean, they've been manipulating the markets for so long and getting away with it. And nobody ever shut down the game and said, stop, we need to change the rules. You guys are making too much money. And that's what they're just basically doing with this now. And Belfort is making the excuse that it's collusion. That word is back now. Collusion between these people.
You know, it's so fitting they would have a criminal like him on CNN. That is so apropos to get a guy that's been to prison over this. I mean, really, that's the best CNN can do.
Well, it was the first. It was the first report I saw about it all day on the other networks. And I was like, wow, CNN's doing something about this. And right before they asked him the question, they actually prefaced it with, hey, you've been in prison for stuff like this before. What do you think? So,
but why would they have him on there in the first place?
Yeah, well, he's obviously made a fortune off the whole situation somehow. That's all supposed to be illegal, to gain money off your crime. Financial income. But anyway, it's just one of those stories that's, you can't rely on politicians anymore. All right, we're going to do it ourselves. And I love it. And then united people. It was the unity that Joe Biden was promising because Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Donald Trump Jr., and Ted Cruz all agreed that Robinhood shutting down was problems, just all kinds of problems. They need to investigate it.
Well, hopefully this is the end of Robinhood.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know who could have an account there when James just said, and we've rigged it against you. So it would be stupid beyond belief for anyone to keep that account at that company. Anyone. And I guess TD Ameritrade jumped on the bandwagon now, too.
Well, that was the excuse the same guy who said it was the volume said, well, once Robinhood got out of the picture, then all the other companies had to do the same thing because they were overloaded, too, with all the demand.
Right, because they got some calls from Soros and all his hedge funds.
One hedge fund had to get an infusion from two different billionaires. It was like $3 billion or something just to get through it. And a lot of them, a couple of them, the big ones, have already pretty much sold out of it. They got out of the bubble now. But a lot of people are suggesting that's the reason why the trading was shut down today. So they could get out at the lowest possible price before it opens up again tomorrow when they figure out they're screwed if they don't open it up and the price goes back up again. So they're still manipulating.
So much for a free market.
Yeah. And I love the excuse for it today too. That it's basically, these people got nothing better to do, and I haven't heard that a lot of people definitely use their stimulus checks, but I've seen memes where it suggests that's what they did. They actually used their stimulus checks to make these investments, which makes it even more. Just, you couldn't script it any better. That's unbelievable.
It's kind of hilarious, I think.
Yeah, they used government money to change the government's regulation system, and play the games that the government and their hedge fund friends have been doing for generations. Unreal. But that's the fight we're in politically. We had one of the best upsets, I guess you could call it, in mixed martial arts over the last weekend, although I did feel like there was a lot more people back in Dustin than Conor. And it's obviously ring rust was the big factor. But another one was the fact that I think Conor was totally looking past this fight and concentrating so much on only his boxing. And I think it was especially a factor because of the whole Holloway thing right before, saying, "Oh yeah, I'm the best boxer in MMA." So Conor wanted to go out there and just punch, and Poirier brought the whole game. So it was one of the best fights I've seen in a long time. He took a couple hard shots in the first round, but like we kind of said, if he was going to do it, he had to do it early. Not that I have that much faith in Conor's, stamina, but you give Conor enough chances, he'll figure out a way. But he took out his legs first with the beautiful placed leg kick, and it was actually a subject of their conversation later on when they ran into each other on the way out. And Conor basically admitted that one of the trainers from Poirier's corner yelled out, "That's a good one!" And he heard it, and he said to himself, "Yeah, that was a good one." His leg was pretty beat up, and once you weaken the leg and you take away his ability to, use a stance that he's comfortable with, he turned out to be useless. And
while that topic, the question is, this hit the forms a lot. Why is it taking so long for that to catch on? Because when I was training, we worked on roundhouse kicks to the thigh. We never thought about kicking them out. We never thought about it. And it must be awful hard to check that.
Yeah. Well,
now, I've never sparred with anyone.
Speaking of hard to check.
But for the roundhouse kick to the thigh, yeah, but for the roundhouse kick to the thigh, it's easier. Okay.
Yeah.
You just lift your leg up, and hopefully you'll get bone on bone, and the kicker's going to get the worst end of it. But apparently, these calf kicks, I don't know why this took 20 years to catch on. I mean, we just never thought of it back then.
Well, I do see a lot of highlight-type reels on people's Facebook pages and stuff of this whole trick of breaking the handle of a bat. Some people actually try to kick it to break it, but other people will actually do jiu-jitsu moves and break it. And it's like part of training now. You got to break up a baseball bat somehow. But some people get so good they could break it with a kick. And there's that whole martial arts background in a lot of disciplines of, you want to build up that scar tissue. So that even if you do hit bone when you're fighting somebody, you don't even feel it. You've got all these calluses on your hands and it's all built up. So some of these fighters just don't care whether it gets checked or not. They know the value of it. And Poirier obviously used them to his advantage. Conor limped out of the arena.
And then, yeah, exactly. Then another thing, maybe when the favored fighter loses, it's always, well, what was wrong with him? Well, maybe what was good about Poirier.
Yeah.
Sometimes we overlook that in the fight. Right? The dog wins and really doesn't get the credit. They say, well, he shouldn't have won. What was wrong with the other guy? Well, maybe it was just a little too much justice. And a totally different fighter than the first time.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of funny because I kind of I kind of screwed over my neighbor because my neighbor bet on Conor. But I said to him, if you're going to bet, you never bet against Conor. That's the way I look at it. But I got a feeling Poirier's going to do something this time. He's going to have an improved game, and Conor's been too busy selling whiskey and sailing his yacht around the world. And I said it, but I didn't believe it enough. And so when I put together my FanDuel team for this whole lineup, I put one team with Poirier in the main event, the MVP slot, and the other two with Conor. That was how much faith I had in Conor. But it turned out the one where I put Poirier in there, I came in 64th place out of 7,000-something people. And the only mistake I made was to bet against Brad Tavares, who got the win over Antonio Carlos Jr., but Antonio was cheap. But I should have went with my favorite female fighter, Joanne Calderwood, because you talk about how do you check him. Joanne was throwing kicks like a tornado. A little Tasmanian devil.
You bet on Jessica? So you bet on the eye?
No. I didn't pick that fight at all in that card.
Ah, okay.
I don't even think I picked anyone in that fight on all three of my cards, but that I put together. But my one loss was Antonio Carlos Jr. I had Juliana Pena. I had Evloev. I had Muradov, Chandler, and Poirier. Carlos Jr. fucked me. I should have went with Calderwood. I had a feeling she was going to win, but, Jessica I was kind of right there with her. It was a toss-up fight for price, and I went with Carlos Jr. for some stupid reason. Brad Tavares just put together a technical fight and just edged it out. But Carlos Jr. looked like a couple times he might get lucky. I was cheering for him too, but it didn't quite pull it off. But anyway, it was a good card. A lot of decisions leading up to the main event, and then there was just a couple TKOs right in a row. But Marina Rodriguez pulled off quite the upset. She was heavily unfavored to win. Ribas was a very high-priced fighter. I think I definitely had her on one of my cards. She was like $24 or $5, which is on the very high end for those little cards that FanDuel puts together. And Marina Rodriguez came in and TKO'd her in the second round. Just brutalized her. But Chandler came in and we definitely predicted this one, Tom. We both said that he was going to have that chip on his shoulder and wanting to prove something. And sure enough, the TKO and first round, 2 minutes and 30 seconds into that one. That was a great fight. And you know why I got to see all these fights? This is the funny part. Because I didn't sign up for ESPN Plus or any of the pay-per-view options available. I watched it on a free stream. And I'm not afraid to admit that. I don't care if Dana's listening, because UFC got the ultimate jinx last weekend, because they out and out put it all over the place that they're against these free streams, and lo and behold, their own legal stream gets shut down. Everybody's complaining about the legal stream not working, while the free streamers are getting no interruption whatsoever. I don't know if that was purposely planned, if they got hacked, or it was just an accident, but you talk about being like you couldn't plan it any better. You couldn't put it in a book, but people wouldn't believe it. Great stuff. I love it. Anyway, other fights we had. Nick Lentz got retired. He actually, I saw this article about him. We're talking about kind of the same area as Spencer Fisher, except he doesn't really have cognitive complaints yet, but he basically says his eyesight is almost gone. Like 40% gone from fighting, and mostly from one fight where he got a lot of eye pokes. But But this split decision loss to Movsar Evloev in the second fight of the night the other night is going to be his last. He's hanging him up. Let's see what other one was pretty interesting. Makhmud Muradov really impressed me. He got the win over this Andrew Sanchez, who was a gamer. I mean, he really came in there and gave it his all, but got TKO'd with a flying knee and punches in the third round. With just 1 second left. That was a great fight. And we talked about Calderwood. Boy, she is just a whirlwind now. Between her last fight and this one, I mean, she got caught in a choke in her last fight, but this one, she just looked much improved, and she didn't even sound the same. She sounded like she's grown up a little bit. She sounded more like, a little kid the last time I heard her interviewed. But this time she sounded like she literally has grown up. I don't know if that's chemical related or anything. She got that little pipsqueak Scottish voice, and then all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I beat her ass. Anyway, she was busy. So, also, let's see what else we had. We had a big boxing match over the weekend. One of the big ones.
Very impressive boxing match over the weekend.
I didn't even read about it, so you'll have to fill us in on that one, Tony. Angelo Leo
main
and
event,
Stephen Fulton.
Actually,
right?
The main event was one hell of a fight, and that was Stephen Fulton out of Philadelphia. And like I said, I got to see him early in his career at the Valley Forge Casino, and he was set to fight for the title in August or September, and he tested positive for COVID, and it really had him down and out. And he was not just physically, from the illness, but it was also, he admitted he was depressed. This was his shot. This was his middle shot, and so he finally, made the recovery, and it was, as Richard, you like to say, it was somebody who's got to go fight, and you figure Fulton, not a big puncher, but very skilled, very technical. You figure he's going to use boxing skills, angles, footwork, movement, and try to keep his opponent at bay. He didn't do that. He stood right in front of him, and as we like to call it, iron for iron. And, I mean, his hands never stopped moving over 12 rounds. I mean, he punched, and he punched, and he punched. And it was unanimous decision. I think the judges had it 119, 109. The other judge might have had it either 118, 110, or 117, 111. Accurate scores. I know Fulton got, you could tell he got a few body shots hurt him, but overall, very good, entertaining fight. It was one of those fights that it's like it starts, and you're watching it, and it, a minute later you're like, oh shit, we're in the 8th round. Mm-hmm. It was one of those fights that was just so act-packed that it just flowed. You didn't feel like it was dragging. It was moving fast. It was a good quality professional fight.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't get to watch any boxing this weekend.
Yeah, the best way to put it.
We got some coming up this week. Well, here's our mismatch of the week. We got to start off with this one. You ever heard of...
That's why. Well,
Go ahead.
That's why I stole Tom's crystal ball.
Oh yeah.
And I will guarantee that Caleb is going to win this week.
Yeah. The Caleb fight. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'd argue that one.
But mismatch of the week. Mismatch of the week.
That would be a good trivia question. Have there ever been 2 Calebs before? That would be.
Yeah, unbelievable. Anyway,
I mean, my luck. I come out there. I'm like, yeah, Caleb's going to win, and then watch it. It's a draw.
Then you definitely lose your money. All right. Well, down in New South Wales, Australia, we've definitely got our mismatch of the month, possibly the century, the way we met it, depending on how much training this guy has done in the last few months. I don't know. But it's a lightweight fight between a guy making his pro debut, Joey Balon, and a guy named Billy Dibb. 46-6 record.
Yep.
I don't know how this is regulated, but...
Well, when you got a guy coming into his pro debut, it's like, okay, what are his qualifications coming into it? Now, Billy Dibb, I know all about Billy Dibb. Billy Dibb was I don't know if he ever won the world title, but he was a world title challenger. I believe he fought Tevin Farmer. He fought a lot of high-quality fighters. Like I said, if he wasn't a champion, he was definitely a contender. Now, the guy he's fighting making his pro debut, are we talking about a guy that's in the Vasily Lomachenko type of, status, where he has such a decorated amateur and Olympic pedigree? And he's stepping right into basically 12 rounders in his pro debut. I mean, you don't see that very often, but like I said, with guys like Lomachenko and back in the day, what was it? Pete Rademacher challenged Floyd Patterson for the heavyweight title in his pro debut.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I don't think this guy qualifies. I don't think this guy's in that league.
Okay. I was just, making it the possibility. Because Dibb is on the downside of his career, too. I mean, you figure he's been around 15 years, easy.
Yeah. Yep. So, like I said, if he's got dementia, yeah, the other guy's got a chance. But otherwise, if he's in any decent shape, he's probably going to win that fight. Might take it easy on him, but he's probably going to win. Down in Mexico, we got a good one at featherweight. Rafael Espinoza, 14-0, and Carlos Ornelas, 25-2. This is all Saturday, the 30th, by the way. Co-main event, there's not so much good fight, but quite the professional opponent record here for this guy, Jose Guadalupe Rosales, coming in at 39-28 with no draws. Fighting Dubiel Sanchez, who's 15-0-2. And then the third fight is actually a pretty decent one. Super featherweight Humberto Galindo, 12-0-1, and Gregorio Soto Molinero, who's 12-3-2. All right. Go down the list here. Did you know you was fighting this weekend?
I am?
You's gonna win. Doesn't it sound like an Italian guy saying you're gonna win?
Sounds like Animal Steel's talking.
There's a guy named Yu. He's from China, I think. He's fighting. Anyway, the big one, Caleb Plant and Caleb Truax. Caleb spelled exactly the same way with a C. So, 20-0 versus 31-4-2. Truax versus Plant. I don't know if he's related to the NASCAR driver. I don't think so. Is he? Do you know, Tony? Martin? Is it Martin Truax?
I don't know.
I know it's spelled the same. But I never bothered to look that up and find out. But anyway, Caleb Plant, 20-0. Caleb Truax, 31-4-2. And you talk about a background of a certain fighter before he turns pro. I've actually seen footage of Caleb Plant in street fights where he's using his boxing skills and just crazy head movement skills this guy has. There's a reason why he's 20-0. But he just basically exhausted a guy using defense in one of the clips I saw. And then, got to the point where he almost got stabbed because people were so pissed off he was beating this guy up. They were supposed to, wipe the floor with him. So he's pretty impressive. I mean, that 20-0 is nothing to laugh at. But Caleb's got a little bit more experience. He's had the draw and the loss in the last 6 fights. So he's been tested and broke a little bit, but you never know what he's going to bring, what kind of fight it's going to be. But it's just Caleb's definitely going to win. I think Tony's right. Definitely right. IBF World Super Middleweight title he's going to win. Caleb's taking it home for sure. It's on free TV too, Fox TV, so we get to watch it if you want. We also have a co-main event. Somebody's always got to go fight, believe it or not. Michael Polite Coffee, 11-0. You gotta love that name for a fighter. Polite Coffee.
I like it.
I got to fight with Polite Coffee. What are you talking about? Coffee's not going to fight you. Anyway, Darmani Rock is his opponent, who's 17-0. And we got welterweights, Rances Barthélemy, 27-1-1, fighting, is that all? A-L-L? Rivera? Is that supposed to be Ali? I don't know. It says all Rivera. 21-4. Barthélemy, I've seen him in action. I've seen him get his draw. And I watched him in person out in Vegas for, I believe it was 2 fights. 2 fights I saw of his in Vegas. One of them was out on the pool deck. But just an interesting type of fighter, different type of style. But he's been figured out a couple times. And one of the wins he got, actually, I thought was I think it was the draw. I think the other guy won that fight. We actually had his promoter on. Remember that, Tony? We had Rance's promoter from the Warriors Boxing. We had on his promoter after that fight. And we argued with his promoter over whether he won that fight. Against the kid from Canada. Why can't I think of his name? But it was a guy from Canada that had come over from like Saudi Arabia or something. And
Afghanistan. I remember that show.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we had his promoter on, and he was standing up for him. But it was a pretty good debate. I mean, I was dead set on saying Rances got edged out, but he stood up for his guy. Give him credit. We also have Joey Spencer at middleweight, 11-0, coming in against Isaiah Selden, who's 14-3-1. And Brandon Lynch against Mark Anthony Hernandez.
Is that Bruce Selden's son?
I believe it is. Isaiah.
Yeah. And Spencer's a hell of a good young prospect. So, I mean, that's interesting right there. You got, son of a former heavyweight titleist against an undefeated up-and-coming prospect.
Right.
Interesting.
Joey's fun to watch. He loves the hooks. He's a little Gotti. Gotti wannabe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can see that.
Let's see what else. That's pretty much it, I believe, for the big fights this weekend. All right. I don't believe we have anything big coming up on UFC radar. Nothing until February, if I'm correct. I don't know anymore. So, what else is new? Manny Pacquiao doesn't want to fight Conor McGregor anymore. I read that today. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, yeah, I mean...
The next target now is Ryan Garcia. And there was almost as many memes of that as there were of Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, as far as the old guy versus the young guy. Manny Pacquiao and Ryan Garcia. It was like, goat versus baby goat. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but they're talking about it. It's obviously...
Well, they say it's going to be an exhibition, but I mean, you look at the weight differences there.
Right.
And then I guess Garcia's nature have the nerve to say, well, it's an exhibition, but it's going to be a fight. Well, it's one or the other. You can't have both.
Right.
Is it an exhibition or is it a real fight? He said, well, it's a fight.
Everything's becoming an exhibition anymore, you know. Hey, Tyson and Jones was a great thing, and I'm sure there's going to be more like that, which is fine, for guys like Mike Tyson and Roy Jones who are not fighting anymore, but they're healthy enough to put on a show, and for especially a nostalgic type of show. That's great, but you don't want to get into it where you're like, oh my god, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford they're finally gonna fight. Oh, it's an exhibition with 12-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
2-minute rounds. It's like, oh, what the hell,
And pay-per-view.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I know one fight that's not going to be an exhibition that got announced officially. I knew it was on the radar, but it didn't quite get official until this last weekend. Ben Askren fighting Jake Paul, and that's just going to extend the whole phenomenon of this YouTuber generation that's trying to fuel a new foray into boxing. Already we got Logan Paul facing the brother facing Floyd Mayweather. Speaking of, I believe that's an exhibition, right? Would have to be, I would think. But this one supposedly going to be a real fight, and Ben Askren is not very known for his striking, so it's going to be interesting. But he asked for it, so I don't know. Not that Jake Paul is a world beater, but Ben Askren, 90% of his game, which is why White never wanted to sign him, was he wrestled all the time. That's all he did, was he wrestled people and he held them on the ground for almost 90% of the fight. That's how he got his wins. But even when he had him on the ground, he could never really knock people out from there. So it's going to be interesting to see him try to box. But I just hate the whole YouTubers think they're better than everybody mentality, and I want to see him get beat for that reason. But I don't know. Ben Askren is not my hero either. He's not my chosen hero to do it. Conor McGregor obviously is in a better position to take that fight now too, but I don't think it's happening anytime soon. I don't think Dana would let it happen anyway. But yeah. That's where we're at in the combat sports world. I don't know if anything else pressing to add to the picture here. Other than that, we had that good interview last week with Francois Botha. Definitely check that out on our website there. And I guess that's about it for us. Unless you guys got anything else to pipe in on.
No, it's like I'm just trying to keep following up with the news and everything and seeing how things are progressing. My dad got his first shot today.
Are you double masked?
Goes next week, which is good.
Are you double masking?
What'd you say?
Are you double masking out there?
I am not double masking.
All right.
You know what? Honestly, now what I did was,
too far.
because I'm still working from home. All my meetings are Zoom. I decided, because right now, you're still getting dark at 5:30, right? So I'm like, why get off of work at 4 something and still drive 25 to 30 some minutes to go to the LA Fitness when you got to work out in a mask? Now, if I'm doing weights, it doesn't bother me that much. But when I'm doing any type of cardio, and I had to write a spoof thing on, Facebook a few weeks ago, because everybody's so uptight right now with political bullshit and a pandemic and an economy, and now you got stock market crap. Everybody's uptight. So me, if you ever read my shit on Facebook, it's supposed to be funny, lighthearted, being stupid. So the one thing I'm like, I want to talk today about masks. Not the kind you'll get a 15-yard penalty if you grab it. I said, I'm going to look at them damn face masks we got to wear when we go out in public anymore. And so then I'm like, here's why I hate them. And I'm like, one, people smile. I like smiles. I'm a nice person. I like to be jovial with people. I like to see people smile. I can't see smiling. Plus, you might see a great-looking girl, but like, man, she's got beautiful eyes, she's got nice, nice body, whatever. And then you see your mask comes off, and she's got summer teeth, summer here, summer there. I stole that from that comedian that did the. He actually did the guy that did the cameo for me. Yeah. He did a spoof where he played both parts, the guy and the girl, and they're wearing a mask to go to a club. Let's go in the back room, sit at the table, take his mask off. She takes the mask off, and like her teeth are all messed up. He's like, "Oh my god." She's like, "What do you do for a living?" He goes, "I'm a dentist." "Oh, my mom always wanted me to marry a dentist." He's like, "Yeah, I wonder why." That's one thing. The other thing, I don't like wearing masks. Because I have somewhat symmetrical, and I say attractive ears. But my upper lobes don't have a lot of room up there, and they don't fit on very well. They're always sliding. I don't like that. The final reason is that I'll be at the gym and I'll be jumping rope and pumping like a locomotive trying to go uphill. And the one day I'm at the gym, I'm jumping rope hard, man, and round ended, and I thought I was trying to suck some air in. I'm like, why are my ears pulling? Oh, because I'm about to inhale the mask. That would have made the greatest obituary of all time. He died. How did he die? Died by wearing a device that's supposed to save his life.
Yeah. Well, the bad news is they're predicting it will cause lung cancer from long-term use. It's the latest thing.
What?
Mask wearing. Yeah.
Or the virus.
No, mask wearing, just because of prolonged use. Like if you have to, go an 8-hour shift in a hospital or something, and you got to wear it the entire time you're in the hospital, it can do that to you.
I only left my house for maybe 20 minutes tonight. I had to go to the grocery store, which is a mile from my house, and I had to pick up 2 quick things. So my mask wearing today was the 5-minute when I got out of my car to get into the grocery store.
Yeah, I feel bad for the people who drive around in their cars alone wearing the mask, and who walk around in public parks and stuff wearing masks instead of just staying 6 feet away from other people.
Well, you know what?
It's ridiculous.
As I said 5 minutes ago, I got to make spoofs on everything. Everything. Now, back last spring, when I first got home from Florida, and they were talking about, almost like they were going to put martial law into effect, and they were going to make people stay in their houses and not leave unless necessary. And I was on a conference call one day, and I'm like, am I allowed to go outside? Now, I have a nice little backyard. I'm like, am I allowed to go out my backyard? Am I allowed to go and get the mail? Well, I like to take a walk, which is, a pathway. It's about 2 miles. And I like to do that along sometimes. And I was on a conference call. I'm like, am I allowed to go outside and go for my 2-mile walk? They're like, Tony, you're allowed to go outside and get some exercise and some fresh air. I'm like, oh, okay. I don't want to get arrested, for being outside. But, of course, I got to make spoofs. So the one day I'm walking, and I see, it was a couple, senior citizens. They were, a little bit behind me. So I texted my friend. I'm like, yeah, you might think I'm an asshole, but there's these senior citizens. They're, about 20 or so yards behind me. I just farted, so this ensuring social distance, that they won't get too close to me. He's like, you are a jerk. And one day I'm walking, and these people are we're in a path. This path, a good 5-6 feet wide. So I'm walking, and these senior citizens, were walking, and they nodded at me very nicely, and pulled their shirt up over their nose. And I'm like thinking, hey, I showered today, God damn it.
Yeah, a lady did that to me on my own street yesterday.
My own armpit doesn't blood smell.
That's funny. It happens.
Well, this is ridiculous.
It's the new road.
If I wasn't acting like this, and if I wasn't trying to make a spoof, I would go nuts right now. So this is my way of just trying to cope with everything. Like I said, my dad got his first shot today. My mom goes next week. I follow, because of my job with a health and insurance company, and with my previous job working with a pharmaceutical market research and medical education company, we would always be looking at pharma articles, pharma journals, trying to see what the new trends were and where we could try to, get some business development. So when this started happening, my instinct would kick in to read up on what's going on. So I read every day. And, we're 2 weeks away from having 2 new vaccines approved. See, people don't know that. You
Yeah.
know?
Have you read the
2 out there right now?
Have you read the newest conspiracy theory about how Trump can still stay president?
No, I haven't. I'm afraid, but
supposedly that's why they're
Well, what'd
staying. They got the National Guard staying in the Capitol until middle of March now, because there's a crazy theory going around that on March 4th Trump will seize the presidency once again, and it's it's all QAnon fed. It's all crazy bullshit. But they want to also put permanent fencing around the Capitol now. Permanent. Unreal. They'd have to go to that length.
But this is not to be political, but this is the political party that doesn't like fences, doesn't it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. They want a wall around the Capitol, for Christ's sake.
Doesn't like the wall. That's the fence.
And
most of them are, anti-Second Amendment, and they're anti-gun, except when they have armed guards.
Yeah, and it's ironic, Just basically, one guy on Fox News, I was watching this piece earlier, and he was like, if you wanted to follow a game plan on how to sell out the country, basically, this is how you do it. As far as Biden's executive order so far, he killed the Keystone Pipeline. He's cutting off our ability to, have our own oil supply. And I actually have a job site right across from a gas station, so I'm going to be able to document the gas prices every single day I go out to my lot. Just take a picture of the sign across the street. But it's funny that people will tell you, it's your gas prices right now aren't affected by that. Bullshit. OPEC is all about speculation. If the prices, if they say on the radio by Labor Day gas is going to go up to $3 a gallon, the next day it starts going up. Just because people have been told. They manipulate it all the time based on market thoughts, and so don't tell me that it's not because of the people losing their jobs and all that, and the pipeline not being built. But just all kinds of different stuff happening. I think it was like he's written the most executive orders in the first week than any president in history, and he's admitted it's almost all to undo what Trump's done. I think one's been pushed back already. The deportations one got a roadblock. Some of the attorneys general sued over that one. But the worst part was there was 19 people killed down in Mexico as part of some of them were part of the, or all of them I believe were part of the caravan from Guatemala there that were all trying to come up and cross the border. And they had a coyote, brought them to a house, and the cartel found out that I guess they hadn't paid ransom or whatever, and the cartel came in and butchered them all and put them in a truck and burned it. So 19 people died, because Joe Biden promised them a welcome mat in America. And not only do they freeze deportations, they want to let, I don't know if they've roadblocked this yet, but they want to let all people out of detention, everybody, even the criminals that are known people with records and everything. They want to let them all out. So that's what we're coming to. Sad.
Yep.
Sad. And one of the funniest memes I saw about it was actually the cutscene from one of the Hangover movies. And it's Bradley, whatever his name is there, saying, dude.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, Bradley Cooper. He's like, man, we fucked up. We really fucked up. And it was like, over the headline was Biden voters. After seeing what he did in his first week. Yeah, they fucked up. But, hey. Yeah, we'll see. We'll still have to wait and see what happens with Trump. The latest news on him, I don't know if he's actually affiliated with it, but they had said earlier that he was going to start his own party, and the word was thrown out that it might be the Patriot Party. So I follow a couple Trump groups on Facebook, and they're not overtly Trump in the name, but they're obviously one of them was like Drain the Swamp, so it was kind of obvious. But they're basically suggesting that the Patriot Party is already in motion, and they got a logo and everything, and you know how the Republicans have an elephant and the Democrats have a donkey, you know. So their logo is supposedly going to be a lion. So it got to make sense for somebody like Trump to go with that. But I also read today that whatever political party, if Trump starts one, whatever it is, whatever they call it, a third of Trump supporters will join it. Will be all in. So he's only lost 2/3 that want to stick with the Republican Party, if you believe that. But we'll find out. I don't know if he's done yet. I also saw a little clip of him on the golf course somebody took, and he was walking by, and they said, "Oh, thank you for your service, Mr. President." And he said, "Oh, we're not done yet." So I'm sure QAnon will run with that in a million different directions. But it's going to get interesting. You know, this whole impeachment thing. They're also going for a censure order. So it's gonna get more interesting before it gets dull. That's for sure. But I don't really believe the whole violence against the government thing. I think that's a lot of overblown stuff. I don't think anybody's going to be trying to do any more raids or storming of anything. I think the whole FBI blitz on the first one was indication enough that there's some wicked consequences to that behavior. And, you know, it's very easy for them to figure out who you are. Especially in this day and age. Everybody's got a digital signature.
You can't figure out Antifa or Black Lives Matter, can they? You notice that?
Yeah.
Completely. You can storm a federal building in Portnoy or Seattle, destroy it, but you can not the Capitol. Yes,
you can't even be inside the building. You know, and you know, the thing with Black Lives Matter, people weren't getting canceled off social media for talking about it. Or for, you know, just basically saying they were there as part of it. You know, you didn't get canceled. Or you weren't threatened to be removed from Congress if you said you supported Black Lives Matter. And I don't have a problem with that general concept that, yes, Black Lives Matter just as much as white ones. All lives matter. But, you know, the whole movement, when it gets hijacked like that, you got to call it out when it happens with the Trump movement. You got to call it out when it happens with them. I mean, it's all got to be on the same plane, or else we're looking at the same country and thinking it's a different one. But it's not. You know, they just act.
Well, here's the problem. Oh, there's a local politician, you know, down where I live, and he's a Montgomery County commissioner. There's 3 commissioners in the county where I live, Montgomery County, right outside of Philadelphia. And you always have 2 of one party and 1 of another party. So you always have a 2-1 split. And our party's been really going Democratic over the last few years. So I met this gentleman at an event 5 years ago, and he was like, "Listen, it's only going to be 1 Republican in." And he goes, "I'd like you to vote for me." So instead of voting straight party, just bullet vote me to get me in. And he's been a big-time Donald Trump supporter, and a lot of people really rip on him for it. He's been at a lot of the dinners that I used to go to with Hank Sisco. You know, he was at Hank's funeral, and I've got to know this guy Joe very well. And, you know, but they always just give, no matter what he says, they give him shit. And with the whole thing with the pandemic, you know, whatever. And he's trying to come out and says, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Why are you trying to raise taxes to fund, like, this $1 billion courthouse, which is unnecessary? Our courthouse right now is fine. You know, so he's been battling. So a few months ago, he came out and said the Black Lives Matter, you know, concept is great, but the organization is a terrorist organization. He had people showing up at his house. He had people, you know, threatening him. He had one of the players from the Philadelphia 76ers, who was having an awful season, by the way, you know, petitioning to have him removed. And I'm thinking, buddy, work on your jump shot. You're getting paid millions of dollars. Now, don't worry about what this is. But he's not, you know, because he pulled out a pamphlet right there, and he goes, this is what your local chapter said. Don't support white businesses. Don't allow interracial couples. Don't. So he's like, basically what they're saying is all racial shit, and it's hate. It's hate. It's a hate stuff. He goes, and I just pointed it out, and now they're threatening me, and they're trying to come to my house. You know.
I know that Trump didn't want to be
compared
to him, but I think Richard Nixon came up with one of the best quotes of all for this whole situation we find ourselves in as a country, when he said that those who hate you don't ever win unless you hate them. And that's basically what killed his whole presidency. He had so much hate for the other side that he was going to do anything to get them, even break the law. And he was humble enough after the fact. He actually gave a couple interviews, which I wasn't aware of until the other day. I found out something about it, but he gave a couple interviews after his presidency, whereas a lot of other presidents haven't really sought out the spotlight at all after leaving. They just leave, especially when it comes to criticizing other presidents. They try to avoid that. But Richard Nixon said that, because he lived it. You hate the other side that much. Like this, that's why this whole thing with, GameStop is such an interesting aspect of the division we're in right now, because you actually have both sides of the aisle agreeing on an issue for once in forever. Wholeheartedly agreeing that you can't cut off the general public to trading a stock just because the hedge funds don't like it, But yeah, it's always going to be that story, though, the big guy versus the little guy, until they even the playing field somehow. And I don't know whether it's changing rules or more of this type of action where they're not just targeting that one stock either. What's making it interesting is they're literally somehow able to generate enough interest to drive up the value of a bunch of stocks. There's like a list of 10 of them going around that they want people to invest in that are all being short sold by hedge funds. And one of them's American Airlines, I believe. Another one of them's Nokia, which is a very cheap one. I believe that's down to like $5 or $6 right now a share. There's another one called Fizz. I don't know what that's all about. And then the other big one that it kind of seems hopeless just because it's a theater, but AMC Holdings. That's a big theater chain, and apparently that's one of the ones they're short selling. I was all over the news this morning. But I tell you, I never learned so much about finance than I have in the past 24 hours. I'm ready to become a tax expert now, Tom. But it's funny because I've had interest in stocks, but I never really pulled the trigger. And when I was living out in Vegas, I tried. But because I was an out-of-state resident there at the time, they wouldn't let me open an account. But I believe it was with TD Ameritrade I tried to get in. So time will tell, though. In the future, I'll definitely do it. I'll definitely have to just, put my money somewhere and try to generate some income outside of the day job, because the day job's not going to be able to support me forever. But I don't know. Definitely not putting my money in any hedge funds. It's open season on those guys, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But
Rick, you guys are gonna both get a laugh out of this. Sometimes you stumble on something by mistake, and it works out in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't, right? 10 years ago, I took a job at a company I despised. I was unemployed. I was laid off. The place hired me. They delayed my start time a couple times. They really fucked me over. But I needed a job, right? So I joined this company, and it was a publicly traded company. It's part of Rollins, which has pest control companies. Orkin, they have Terminex under them, Western, which was my company. And they always said of all the companies Rollins owned, Western was the worst. Western had about a dozen branches in, the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland area. Out of their dozen branches, my branch was the worst. So we were the worst of this huge, $1.8 billion company. Right? So So when I was signing up and I was filling out all my paperwork and putting in my tax deduction shit and all that, so like, do you want to be part of our stock plan? I said, what do you mean? They said, well, where you can defer so much out of each paycheck and buy stock in the company. And at the time, I didn't know I was going to hate this place. I said, yeah, I'll do that. $50 a paycheck. We get paid by week, $50 a paycheck, which comes out to about $1,300 a year or something like that. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll do that. So the stock at the time was around $21 to $24 a share. So you figure every paycheck I was getting about 2 shares, and it would go up. Sometimes it went up to about 27, and or it went down to 18. Where you're buying. So after 2.5 years, I accepted a layoff with that company because I hated it. Unhappy. There was no room for progression. They offered me a buyout, and I took it. They said, well, what are you going to do with your stock? And I talked to my financial advisor. He's like, just keep it. Just keep it in there. What the hell? It's not hurting anything. Going up and going down. Well, it kept going up. And then one day, it cut in half. I said, oh, my God. I lost all this money. And I had my friend, the financial advisor, look at it. He goes, no, you didn't. It split. I said, what does that mean? He goes, well, they dropped the price so people would keep buying shares because they didn't want to buy them if it was getting too high. So they dropped the price, and they just gave you so many extra shares. They gave you like 50 extra shares. I said, well, that's good, right? He goes, yeah. And it kept creeping up. And now I had all you figures are 2.5 years at $50 a paycheck. At most I put in was $3,000. And every 3 months they would say, hey, here's a extra dividend at $30. We're giving you an extra share. Okay, thank you. And it would go up a little bit, and then I'm like, well, I'm up to about $7,000, $8,000. Well, I've doubled my money. This is good. And they said, keep it in there. Don't do anything with it. And it kept going up. The stock split again. I'm like, wait, that's good. That stock just split again for the 4th time since I've had it. That stock that I bought for $3,000 is up to close to $30,000 right now.
Nice.
That's not being good, right?
Sounds good so far. What happened?
And,
Did it all go away?
Well, I had a coworker of mine. Actually get mad at me, and he was like, well, that's not fair. I said, well, what do you mean it's not fair? I said, you've been there longer than I have. It was, you have a coworker that you're great friends outside of work, but you can't work with them because it's always like everything's like always like a battle. This was a coworker. That's not fair. I said, what do you mean it's not fair? Well, you're getting all this extra money now. I said, you don't even work there anymore. I said, yeah, but I said, I put $50 a paycheck aside. I said, you had the same opportunity, and maybe you weren't paying attention to it when they offered it or when you signed up. You were employed before I was, so I don't know what your discussion was. I said, I made a sacrifice of something small, $50 a paycheck, and it worked out for me, and maybe I should do that because now you got something that I don't have. Well, it's not my fault you didn't take it. These people
that's the perfect metaphor for the hedge fund guy.
And they're broke because they wasted it all. Yeah.
The hedge fund guys were thinking the company was going to fail, so they didn't invest for it to do well. They invested for it to do bad. So, yeah, sometimes you got to just believe in the company.
It's actually kind of ironic that the last few days the movie Trading Places has been on.
Yeah. You know what? The Firm was on today. You know what else was on? HBO or the Flicks or something like that. It was another movie. It was kind of related, but it's funny how they match. No, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was on Flicks tonight. Coincidentally. I don't know if they planned it or not, but I was like, that's too funny. Prince of Thieves. I love it. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I know I have a GameStop in the mall here where Walmart is, so we have to go stop by and actually spend some money there. Make sure they don't die. I like the story, you know. I'm in love with the story. I don't know what the answer is to fix the problems, but you know, I like the fact that this little story has exposed it all, and it gets you interested in it, you know, especially when you hear how it started in this whole cancel culture with a bunch of people on the internet just saying, well, you know, we're going to run shit now. I love it, you know. It's the little guy fighting back. But we'll see. We'll see if that revolutionizes anything or if it's just a fluke. Alright, well, I'm out of here, so we'll call it a night.
Yeah, me too. Alright, guys.
We'll catch up next week. We'll have lots to talk about, hopefully. Try to get a guest.
Bet on Caleb. See you guys.
Yeah, bet on Caleb. That's a sure money winner. Adios.